Welcome to Female Fractionals, the biweekly podcast for successful female fractional executives and those ready to take the leap. In each episode, I'll bring you actionable lessons and inspiration through interviews with thriving fractional leaders and experts. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Female Fractionals. I'm your host and Fractional CMO, Amanda Nizzere. On today's episode, we have Katherine Lehman, Fractional CMO, advisor, and entrepreneur at KT Creativity. Katherine started as a graphic designer, then mastered automation, and ultimately merged creative storytelling with data-driven strategy to become a powerhouse in marketing. Now a fractional CMO, Katherine helps companies scale through bold, creative, and results-driven strategies. With deep expertise in startups, SaaS, e-commerce, and logistics, Katherine specializes in revenue marketing from the ground up, demand generation, strategic partnerships, and high-impact event activations. As the fractional CMO of Return Bear, Katherine is redefining how brands approach returns, especially across borders, making them seamless, sustainable, and bearable. Beyond marketing, Katherine is passionate about financial independence and career acceleration through skill development, teaching people how to turn niche skills into sustainable income. Through easy-to-follow courses and coaching, KT Creativity empowers professionals to maximize their earning potential. Not one to stay in a single lane, Katherine is also a dedicated fitness coach. Balancing multiple roles, Katherine thrives at the intersection of business, fitness, and family, proving that you can have it all, just with a little strategy and a lot of caffeine. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. Katherine provides a lot of really prescriptive and helpful tips and tricks around tools that are helping her business grow, how to really master and think about niching down in a different way, and pricing strategies, something that I think almost every fractional grapples with at one point in time throughout their career. Also, don't forget at the end of every episode, we do a rapid fire round of questions so you can learn a little bit more about Katherine. Thanks for listening. Hi, Katherine. Welcome to Female Fractionals. I'm so glad you're here.
I'm really excited to be here and have this conversation.
Okay, so I'd like to start every conversation just asking each of my guests if you could share a little bit about your professional background and how you got started in your field.
Absolutely. So as a kid, I wanted to be a designer. I was a very big art kid, but I also was very analytical. So naturally, my art side won out because I wanted to go make art. So I went to school for graphic design. And that quickly turned into me helping my teachers with this newfangled thing called social media, which kind of slid me into digital marketing. And that's when I realized there was a place for me to turn over my creative brain and turn it into more of my marketing brain and put the two things together. So that eventually led me into automation and basically what I call skill hoarding, where I started learning everything I could about marketing and automation and analytics and how it all played together and fit into the giant puzzle. So it finally was the career path that made sense for both my left brain and my right brain to come together and turn it into a superpower.
I know when we talked before we got on camera, you talked a little bit about how you boomeranged around in terms of the industries that you've supported. Could you share a little bit about that experience and what you've learned across all of those experiences and how that led you to where you are today?
Yeah, I assume the boomerang you're talking about is not just in from design to marketing, but it's also in from industry to industry. So when I started, I was in D2C businesses and, basically selling shoes at a shoe store and doing marketing from that. Then I kind of boomeranged over into B2B and I started in manufacturing for chemicals and waterproofing and welding and HVAC and a bunch of different stuff. And then I pivoted again and took it over to aerospace and defense and automotive and technology and silicon chip manufacturing. And then I boomeranged again and came back around to tech and software. And what I learned most about that experience and kind of pivoting through all those roles is for marketing principles transfer. No matter what industry you're in, a lot of the core principles of marketing go very nicely everywhere you go. I basically call it, if you can drive a Ford, you can drive a Chevy, you can drive a Subaru, like you learn how to drive the car and then you just learn where the different bells and whistles are on that car. So I'm a big learner. You'll hear me say that a lot probably today because I love talking about learning. But you kind of learn, what you can and cannot tolerate in each of those industries, and you kind of find your home that way. I've always thrived from being busy and engaged. Some people thrive in consistent industries. That's not really my style. But I think that's what ultimately led me to the path of being a fractional. You can prioritize a remote work environment, which works amazingly well for me, and still have a lot of opportunities to collab in person or however you choose to. I think that's the gift of being a fractional is you get to kind of choose your own path.
Yeah. Can you share something that helped you in your early days?
Yeah. I think niching down is something that a lot of people talk about, right? They
Mm.
say you should niche down, you should really get narrow with your focus and things like that. And people tend to think that that means industry, right? That, oh, I have to pick to only work in software, or I have to
Right.
only, in my case, logistics. But I don't even think that has to be the case. You can niche down on a skill set. So for me in the early days, it was marketing automation and marketing ops. So that was like kind of my niche down skill set that kind of broke away a lot of my success. It was a skill that was really in high demand. It's still in high demand. I was really good at it. And I found out that a lot of people hated to do it, but it appealed to my brain. So in the early days, I would say pick something you really love doing, pick a subset of the discipline that you love, and kind of focus on that for a while and grow with that and be a specialist and an expert in that. And it kind of opens the door for a lot of other opportunities. You don't have to stay there forever, it's not permanent. But if your niche right now is AI, for example, there's plenty of space out there to be an expert in that, right? It can open up a door that would not be opened if you were just a generalist all the time.
Yeah, that's good advice. I do feel like people come on and talk a lot about niching down, and they always do come at it from an industry perspective. So I like how you reframed that or gave people a different way to think about it because I think it's something that people grapple with a lot in the beginning. So I love that reframe. Given that you're in marketing automation and there's so many different tools available to you in that space, I mean, there's so many tools available to us now, just in general, but particularly in marketing automation, and there always has been. But how do you use tools in your business to help you become successful and
I think
remain successful, I should say?
Yeah, I think tools are really important. But I've been in startup land for long enough to know that the tools don't always solve the problem. If you've ever been in an early stage startup, sometimes you have 8,000 tools and it gets out of hand really quickly. I'm a tech junkie, so I really love trying new tools, trying new technologies, but there is such a thing as too much software, right? So finding something that's going to work for you, finding something that's going to uncomplicate what is complicated instead of adding additional layers of complexity in there is really important. So, does it work with your brain, right? If the system is designed in a specific way that doesn't make any sense to you, not to call out Microsoft SharePoint or anything, but I cannot figure out that platform for the life of me. And I'm not stupid. um, but if it doesn't work the way your brain works, if the software developer, had a different path, it's going to be really hard for you to try to fit into the mold of that software. I have some tried and true partners of my own that I really like and that I'm affiliate for because I love them. But the bottom line is you have to make it work for you. So there's definitely a good CRM platform is going to take you a long way, whether you're a fractional or whether you're a business. So I really like Folk. It's simple. It speaks to me. It works really well. Some people really like Notion. Some people hate Notion. Some people love Monday.com for project management. So it really is trying a couple different things. Luckily, everybody gives you a free demo, and playing around to see what works best.
Yeah. How do you stay up to speed on those different tools as well as different industry trends that are out there?
I am fully embracing this new age of B2B influencers on LinkedIn. I know everybody's got their favorite like fitness and wellness influencers on Instagram and things like that, but the B2B influencers that are coming out on LinkedIn and talking about things in the industry and things that are trending from their unique perspective are really valuable. Those are conversations, not just someone, pushing content out. And I find those to be a good place to learn what's new and what's trending and what people are actually talking about. So I also really lean heavily into my community Slack channels. The experts in the CMO Coffee Talk, big shout out to them. And even Pavilion. I'm a huge member of Pavilion, very big advocate for it. So I love all the resources that they offer from a community aspect because people are out there doing these things, right? It's not just like someone's talking about it, but there's people out there actively engaging and learning and getting a chance to talk to them and hear their unique experience is hugely beneficial. And
Yeah.
of course, I always take new courses as they come up. I just took the Winning by Design Revenue Architecture course, which was great. But there's always more to learn out there, and I think you can learn a lot from just listening to other people doing that listening.
Let's talk a little bit about your business and just some of the tactical, practical realities of building a business. So, how did you land your first client?
My very, very, very first client, rest in peace because he's unfortunately passed on, was one of my teachers. So a teacher in my class said, "Hey, he had his own design firm and his own design business and said, yeah, I really don't understand this whole Facebook thing. Somebody told me I need to use it for my business, but I don't get it. What's a group? What's a page? I don't understand." He's like, "You seem like you have a handle on this, and I don't." So I got into an agreement with him. I said, "Okay, I'm going to run your social media for you. I'm going to build you a profile." And it was my first experience building social for a business, which is not something I really do a lot anymore. But at the time, it was like the hot skill set. So I leaned into that, and he really gave me the confidence to, I mean, it's very flattering for your teacher to have hundreds of students and to pick you, right? So it gave me the confidence that I had a good, it gave me the confidence to have a good skill set in place to how to negotiate that, how to work through that. He taught me a lot because he took his own clients about how to be a good business manager for yourself, which was hugely influential.
So, that sounded like that was a bit like a consulting agreement. How have you over time made the shift from consulting into more fractional type arrangements with clients? What are those conversations like?
Oh, that is an important distinction. And I love this point in time in the industry because there seems to be four groups of people, right? There's advisors, there's interim employees, there's consultants, and then there's fractional. And everybody's like, well, what's the difference? I have a handy dandy chart that I reference to get through it. Advisors are basically not part of the team, right? They're just giving oversight. So sometimes I get brought in an advisory role and somebody says, okay, here's all of our stuff. It's a mess. Help me make heads or tails of it, and I'll assess, I'll audit, and I'll give them back feedback, or I'll do ongoing feedback with their team. But I'm not a member of their team, right? Consulting is more project basis, and so is kind of interim. Interim, you could be part time or full time, or filling in for like a maternity leave or a paternity leave or something like that. A consultant's more like a project, right? Here's the project, here's the scope, here's what you're going to work on, and it's going to be for usually a specific period of time, right? 6 months, 3 months, whatever. Fractional, which is where I ended up now, um, is you're a fully embedded member of the team, right? So for the fractional teams that I'm a part of, I'm part of the team. I'm in the Slack channels, I'm on the leadership calls, I'm with the team. And sometimes there's an end date, but usually not. And I'm representing the company. I'm part of the company. Consultants very rarely represent the company that they're working for. Fractionals do, and they can be the leader of that team. You don't have to be full time to be a leader of that team. So that's kind of where I ended up. A lot of what I do now is fractional work or advisory work, helping companies move faster, helping them fill in those gaps. I do work with a lot of startups, particularly in the logistics space, but not exclusively. And a lot of those startups need strategic leadership. They need someone to steer the ship, but they don't want to pay for a full-time employee, or they don't need it yet, right? They're not big enough yet. They haven't had enough traction yet. They just need someone to help steer that ship in the right direction and move all the pieces in the right way on the board. That's what I love about being a fractional, is getting to help move all those pieces forward at a faster rate.
And over time, are you finding that since people are more familiar with the fractional model, are more people coming to you with a fractional project versus a consulting project, and you're not having to have those conversion conversations, or are you still having to have those types of discussions?
I think it goes both ways. I think there's still a lot of confusion in the industry about what a consultant is versus a fractional. And there's times I've taken fractional gigs and I'm still internally called a consultant because that's what they know me as. I think the biggest issue with terminology that I'm seeing a lot of, and this is driving me absolutely crazy. So not to add a gripe to this session, but I'm seeing a lot of people build themselves as fractionals who are not fractionals. They are consultants and or they only do projects. And I've interviewed a few of them to hire for my growing business. And it's just such a frustrating conversation because I feel like it devalues those of us that are out there that are actually doing fractional work for people who are just consultants trying to build themselves as fractional. Not to discount how anybody wants to self-identify, but it is really challenging to have that conversation when, you might be up against two other quote fractional consultants, or fractional CMOs, as it were, and they're really just consultants, right? They don't know how to be a fractional. They don't know how to lead a team. They don't know how to be an integrated part of the leadership agenda. They don't know how to work on the next series raise that you're going for. They just don't know that part of it. They're just a consultant. And it is really challenging when you're, writing up a scope and you're up against someone else and they're like, yeah, I've done all this before. And that's really not true.
Right. That also affects the pricing, right? As well, is when you have three people that are going up for the same fractional role and the varying level of experience is there, you're going to have three different levels of pricing, which is why I'm also so passionate about getting the right definition of fractional into the market, which I believe is very much aligned with what yours is. So, can you share a little bit about some of the experience that you've had around pricing as your business has grown and maybe some reflections around what happened in the beginning of your business? Because I think everyone goes through some pricing questions and woes in the beginning. Can you just share a little bit about that?
I think pricing is the thing that gives us the most scaries out of anything in the consulting and fractional world. Knowing how to price yourself is terrifying, especially if you are not niche down to a particular industry or a particular size of company, right? If you're working for a startup that's bootstrapped, that is a completely different conversation than an enterprise level company that's been around for 50 years, right? The budgets are different, the red tape is different, the approvals is different, and having to enter that room and not only knowing your own worth, but knowing what the market rates are right now. The market rates a year ago when I was doing this are completely different than the market rates now based on the economy.
Yep.
Uh, so I really have to look at pricing through the lens of what my hourly rate is, what it's worth for me to take that job, what the package is going to be long term, and the value that I bring to the table. What I'm seeing right now, like I said, I've interviewed a few people recently that I've been looking at bringing into my team internally in my agency. And the conversation is it's bad. It's a bad conversation with these consultants because for me, they would be consultants. They come in with a very high price tag, like a very high price tag. And they're saying, well, I'm going to charge you, this is just an example, I'm going to charge you $250 an hour. And I'm like, okay, well, that's great. And then I challenge them. I go, well, that's too much for me. And they immediately come down. Immediately, they're like, well, I could do it for 200. And then I'm like, oh, that's great. That's still not in my price range. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. But I could do it for 100. And it almost becomes a bidding war that I don't love because if your price is your price, I believe you should stand behind your price. So if you give a price and you say, I'm $250 an hour, then stand behind that price. Believe your value is worth that, right? If you're going to come out with that price, stick with that price. If you're going to change your price, give a reason for it. Say, okay, I can't do it at that price for this commitment, but I could do this commitment at this price instead. Don't just sit there and constantly bid down on yourself. I think that is a really big rookie mistake that I used to do a lot. And I'm seeing it a lot with some of the younger fractionals and consultants that I've talked to where they will bid down on themselves. But also take into mind before you start a pricing conversation, I like to ask what the budget is. It's an easy conversation during your first meeting. What do you have allocated for this project or this role? And they should be telling you what that budget is. If they don't have a budget, they shouldn't be in that conversation. They're probably going to waste your time. So find that out ahead of time and then see if you need to fit into that structure. But once you set your price, unless you have a really good reason to change it, don't devalue yourself like that. Stand on what you're worth. If you think you're worth 200, say 200.
Yeah, very good guidance. Any other lessons learned that you'd like to share from the beginning?
I think in the beginning, I was always so nervous about talking about what I could do and what I couldn't do. I was always very quick to say yes, but I was also very quick to kind of not follow up with that yes and be, a little more aggressive with what I could accomplish. So, and being aggressive doesn't necessarily mean being mean, right? Um, what I learned early on, and I wish I had learned this earlier on, is to always be nice. Even if someone's not going to work with you, you don't know who they know. You don't know what partners they may bring down the table. They might know somebody that's going to be a good fit for you. But I love the quote, like, people remember how you make them feel. Make them feel good on the way out, even if you can't help them, even if you can't work with them, even if it's a bad match, even if it was a bad experience. Try to leave on a good note because you never know where that may lead. 95% of my business has come from referrals. Either people being referred to me from people I know or people that have never worked with me that just had a good conversation with me. So even though it might kill you sometimes, try to be nice. Don't betray yourself in that process, but try to be nice. Um, you never know where that might lead.
Yeah. I was going to ask how you were securing business. I had made an assumption that much of it was referral. Are you asking for the referrals? Like coming straight up and asking for it at the end of projects? How does that work?
What I ask for at the end of a project when I'm closing out is usually a recommendation. So if you go on my LinkedIn, my recommendation section is full of CEOs, COOs, everybody that I've worked with, whether they've worked under me in an employer capacity, or they've worked over me, or they've just worked with me as a client. I ask for those referrals. And most people are very happy to give those, and they give them publicly. So I don't have to come back and ask for them again later. Like asking someone for a recommendation 6 months later or even 2 years later is very difficult. They're out there, they're publicly available. They're on my website now. I just relaunched my website. So now they're on my website. And I don't ask them to refer me, but I will say, if you see a project that you think I'd be interested in, by all means, give me a referral. I would love to have it. But often what I see more often is people who've worked with me before are quick to refer me on their own. I've had a few of those in my network where people that I've worked with or worked for have referred me out of the blue. I had a boss who I actually ended up replacing, and she could have been very angry about it, but she turned into one of my biggest champions and has referred me 3 clients. So
That's great. I love those stories. We need more of that. So you are running a growing business. Tell me a little bit about, I mean, I know that like this whole work-life balance is such a myth. I think a lot of people enter into the fractional space thinking that they are joining a movement where right off the bat, they are going to be working less and gaining a bit more freedom. And certainly that is the goal over time, but that is something that you really have to work toward and work hard to get to. So, knowing that you are running a growing business and you actually have another business on the side, can you share some of your strategies or habits for helping you find that elusive work-life balance?
I think you hit it spot on. I think people are attracted to the fractional lifestyle because it's fractional, right? That means less hours, right? That means I get more time for work-life balance, but people don't think about it in the lens of you are now responsible for sales, marketing, accounting, and everything that goes along with that business. And that might not be all of your gifts. So those things are going to take you longer. You're still building a business. You're still building a book of business, even if you have one or two long-term clients, you're still running a business. And that takes time and effort beyond all of that. I believe work-life balance is a myth, at least in the way people think about it. Balance to most people is like a scale, right? 50-50 on both sides. Like that's balance for most people. But some days it is, 95-5, and some days it goes back the other direction. It kind of swings back and forth. It's not really balanced all the time. I personally feel very balanced in my life, but I run two businesses. I run this consultancy. I have a thriving wellness practice as well. And I have lots of hobbies. I have lots of things that I work on, but it's prioritizing my time in what fills my cup. So, what makes me feel good about the work that I'm doing? When I work with my clients, I feel good about the work that I'm doing. I make sure I block time to get things done. I make sure that I don't cross over and do context switching in the middle of the day. So if I have 4 blocks or if I have 4 hours allocated to a client, that is my sole focus for those 4 hours. I will not cross pollinate. I will not be distracted. That is their time, and I will spend that time. I use Motion, which is like a calendar app. Love it. It auto schedules all my stuff for me. I am neurodivergent. I have ADHD, so I use some of those hacks to help me stay on schedule. But I also gave myself permission over the last, I would say, year or so to outsource what I don't like or what I can't handle or what makes me stressed out. So if my house is messy, I'm stressed. The best thing I did was outsource and finally get somebody to help me clean my house because it would stress me out and take away from the work I was trying to focus on.
Mm.
So I know not everybody has that luxury, but you know, anything you can take off your plate that makes you feel guilty or just hangs over you like a cloud helps you achieve that feeling of balance without actually having to be an equal sum equation on both sides. I think it's very achievable to feel balanced without having the equal balance.
Yeah. Motion was just mentioned on the by the last person that I interviewed, and so I downloaded it and started using it, and I am so sad that I didn't start using it months ago.
Yeah.
It's an amazing tool.
Yes. I love it. I've been using it, I think, for a year and a half. I was one of the early adopters when it was still super buggy and super hard to use. And I actually tried to switch to Reclaim, I think, or some competitor of it. And it just messed up my whole calendar. Like it completely scrubbed one of my Google calendars. But yeah, Motion is a great tool. I can load all my projects in there. I load all my clients. I prioritize things with the flags. And then it auto schedules my day, right? So if I say these are my time blocks for my client, it'll put things into those blocks for me. And I can share it, with my assistant, with my teammates. I can share it, with other people across my organization. And it helps keep us all on track. And then everybody knows what I'm working on.
Yeah, it's a dream tool.
Yeah, definitely a good
Okay.
one.
Yes, it's a great one. Okay, so I like to end every interview with some rapid fire questions, and these are meant to be answered in one word or one sentence or less. So
Got it.
let's jump in. Okay, most unusual place you've taken a client call.
In a kayak.
Okay, I do have to ask a follow-up to that one. Where were you in a kayak? Obviously in the water somewhere, but I need to know state and more info.
Was in New York State on Hemlock Lake and the Finger Lakes. And I was all by myself. I was listening to an audiobook and my phone rang and I realized it was somebody I was trying to land as a client. I'm like, well, I'm just going to answer it. And I did end up landing that client. So I'm glad I took the call that day. But they also found it really funny that they're like, where are you? We hear some like wind or something. I was like, I'm in a kayak.
Okay, favorite productivity hack.
Motion. It's going to be my Motion calendar app.
Okay, what's a fun fact about you that's not on your LinkedIn profile?
um, I was a professional clown for 5 years. Scary clown, as in I scared people for money.
Also would like more about that, but we'll leave that one where it is. Early bird or night owl?
Perpetually exhausted pigeon. Just kidding. I'm a night owl that has been forced to become an early bird.
Okay, most unexpected skill that's helped your career.
Mm, yoga. I got my yoga teacher certification and it made me a much better leader, so much more chill, level-headed, and able to handle things.
I like that. If your career was a movie title, what would it be?
Hashtag all the things.
I like that. No one's answered that one yet before, and that is a perfect answer. Sauna or cold plunge?
Ooh, I have both, but I prefer the sauna because I'm always cold, but I will struggle through the cold plunge because it's really good for my body.
Most used emoji in professional texts.
Always the thumbs up. It's like my version of K.
Last thing you impulse bought.
Instagram got me. I bought a DEI t-shirt. So it says you're probably DEI too, and it lists out everything that's covered under that.
Hmm. What's your hidden talent?
Oh, I'm very flexible. I can lick my elbow. I know you're all going to go try it now, but most people cannot lick their elbow, but actually can.
Okay, and finally, given you can lick your elbow, what is your dream superpower?
I wish I could teleport because there's so many places I want to go and see, and it would just, really cut down on the T&E expense.
That is true. That is true. All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been so helpful. So many good tips and tricks, both for people that are just starting out, but also for people that are already in practice. So I already have motion, but if people don't have it, you should get it. And they are not a sponsor or even close to being one, but if they'd like to be, that'd be great. Um, but it's a great
I have an
tool.
affiliate link.
And I also wrote down in my list because I get great tips in every single one of these conversations as well, is just adding to the, end of my kind of business operations list is to remember to ask for the LinkedIn referrals because I'm always asking for business referrals, but I forget to ask for the LinkedIn, just send them the link to that. So that's a really good tip too. So along with many other things, but thank you for the time. This has been great. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. This was wonderful.
As always, please remember to follow, like, comment, and share. And don't forget to head over to femalefractionals.com for a full transcript of the show and links to everything we talked about during our conversation. Thanks for listening.